In this video, we're going to finish off our home component. We have some grid we're going to show. If we look in our app, we have the grid, we have the thumbnails, we also have the load more button and the spinner. So we go back into our code editor and we're going to start creating the for call grid. So we'll open up the for call grid.js document. And we start, as usual, by giving the wrapper div a class name. And we'll name it RMDB grid, like this. We also want to show a header before the grid, and this header will be based on if we're doing a search or showing the most popular movies. So we check this by going to props.header, and if we're not loading anything, so if we have a header and not loading anything, we want it to show an h1 tag from props header. Otherwise, we just return null. We're showing nothing. So we can send in what header we want, and it will show it here if we have a header, and we're not loading anything. And as you can see here, this is also a ternary operator that is handy for us to use in a case like this. Then we have another div with a class name of RMDB grid content, like so. And we're going to create a method that is going to render out our thumbnails, and we call that method render elements. So we create this method. We start with a const of render elements, and we do an arrow function like before, like so. In this one, we're sending in the thumbnails as children, and we're going to loop through these children and create a new array with the elements that we're going to show in the grid. Firstly, we create a const called grid elements, like this, and we grab the children from the predefined props called children. So if you have children in this component, you can get them by the props.children. I'm going to show you this in a while in the home component when we're sending in the thumbnails to this component. And we're going to map through these children. So what is the map method? Well, the map will go through all the elements in the array, and we can like modify these elements with a function, and it will create a new array for us. So we loop through all the children in the array, and we create a new array with our grid elements. So we map them, and we have our element and our iterator like this, and we do a fat arrow function again, and we will return something. And what do we want to return? Well, we want to return a div that is going to show in our grid for each element. And we also have to have a key in this grid because we're looping through something and creating elements, and React wants a key for this one. We have a class name of RMDB grid element, like this. And then we just simply return our element like this. So what are we doing here? Well, we're looping through our children's, and we create a new div for each children. And this div is going to show in the grid content wrapper div. We just have to return our grid elements, like so. This is everything we have to do with the for call grid component. We'll go back to our home component in the home.js file and start building the grid. First, we remove this one that we already created here like a placeholder. So remove the for call grid we have as a placeholder. Then, directly after the ternary operator that we used for the hero image and the search bar, we'll create a new div with a class name of RMDB home grid. And this is where we're going to put our grid elements. So we write for call grid, and we're going to send some props for this one. First, we have a header, and this prop is going to select a header based on if we're doing a search or if we're showing the most popular movies. So first of all, we check if we have a search term in our state. If we have a search term in our state, we're doing a search, and we can have the header search result. Otherwise, we show popular movies. Then we also have a prop with the loading state, if we're loading or not. This state, loading. And we close this one. And this is going to be a special one because we're sending in the movie thumbs as children to this one. We're not self-closing it here, so we have a closing tag, and between these tags we can send in the movie thumbs. And how do we send in the movie thumbs? Well, we can loop through the movies just as we did before with the map method. So we grab the movies from the state, this state.movies, and we map through them. And we have our element and our iterator. And we do an arrow function like this. We need to return something, and we'll return a movie thumb with some props. Firstly, we have the key that we need to have. We have a prop named clickable. We set that to true, as we want the user to be able to click on the thumbnail so they can get to the individual movie page. We have an image, and we do a ternary operator here, checking if we have a poster path. If we don't have that, we don't have an image for this one. And then we can fall back to our, in the public images, we have a fallback called noimage.jpg. So we'll fall back to that one if we don't have a thumbnail for the movie. So we check if we have a poster path in our element. If we have a poster path, we can build our image URL. We do that by creating a backtick, the $sign, curly braces, and we get our image base URL. Then we get our poster size. Whoops, like this, poster size. We do a /, and we also grab our image URL. And this one is in the element poster path. So we grab that from the element and our poster path like this. We also do the backtick again, very important. And we do a colon. And if we don't have an image, we fall back to our own image. That's in images, no image.jpg. Like so. What else do we need? Well, we need the movie ID. And this one is for the link that we're going to do later in the next video. We'll save this one for when we go through the browser router with the links. But we can send in these props for now. And we also have a movie name. Element original title. Like this. So these, we're not going to show this in any way in our movie thumb. They're just for the link later on, so we can direct the user to the right page when clicking on a thumbnail. We close this one, and we can do it a little bit nicer, like so. We save, and we're getting something. We haven't made the movie thumb component yet, so we're just getting the text here, but we see that the grid is working. So we'll continue on by making our movie thumb. In this one, we're going to have a link, but as I said, we save this one for later, and for now, we're just going to show the image. So first, as usual, we give this Rapidiv a class name of RMDB movie thumb, like so. And then we're just going to show our image for now. So we grab the source from props.image. We also have an alt and we call it movie thumb. And we self-close it. We save the file and we check if we have a movie thumb. And we're not getting a movie thumb. And why? Well, we probably have an error in our URL that we're sending in to our thumb. So we'll check that one. Go to our home page. Image base URL, poster size, patch. It should be path, like this. So, and we're getting the movies, and we're also getting the header. So what if we do a search, and it's working? You also see that the header is changing depending on if we're doing a search or if we're just showing the homepage. So what else do we have to do here? Well, we have to create our load more button. So we go to our load more button.js file, to our load more component. And as usual, we create a class name for the wrapper div called rmdb load more btn. We're going to have an on-click event for this one. And we grab that function from props on click. And this one is the one we created earlier in the home component called load more items. What else do we need? Well, we're sending in a text with props, so we show this text in a paragraph. Like this. And this is all we have to do in the load more component. So, do we see a button? We do, but we're not sending in any text yet. So we're going to fix this now. We go back to our home.js component, and just below the for call grid, we're firstly going to check if we're loading something, if we're going to show the spinner or not. So we do this by this state loading. If it's true, then we're showing the spinner. If it's not true, we're just doing nothing. We return null. And when do we show the load more button? Well, we have to show this button if we're not on the last page. So we can check if our current page are less or equal to the total pages. And we also don't want to show the load more button when we're grabbing something and the spinner is showing. So we do a turner operator here also, and we check if this state, for this one actually we're going to do a parenthesis because we're doing two checks here. So we write this state current page is less or equal to this state total pages. We also want to check if we're loading something or not. So we check this state loading. So if this state loading is false and we're not on the last page, so then we show the load more button. We write a question mark, and on the next line we return our load more button component. We have a prop with a text. We want it to say load more, and we send in our on-click function. This load more items. And we self-close it. Otherwise, we'll return null. And of course, we have to remove this one. It shouldn't be there. It should be after the null. So if we save our component and check out our app, we have a load more button. We are actually showing two because we must remove this one also. And we can also remove the spinner like this. So save it again. And we go back, check, we'll load more. And it's working. It's showing the spinner when it's grabbing the movies. We also have to test if it works on the search. So we do a search. I like Star Wars, so I do this search many times. Well, we load more and it's not working. And why is that? It's probably because there's an error in our URL for the API when we do the search. And I can see here now that we need an equal sign after the query. So we go back and fix this in our home component. We go up to load more items and to our search URL. After the query, you see, I forgot the equal sign, so we write it like so, and we save it again. And then we test, we do a new search, and it's working. You can also see that the no image file is showing when we don't have a thumbnail from the API. So that's also working fine. That's pretty much it. We have completed our home component, and in the next video we're going to talk a little about the browser router and also create the links for the thumbnails and the logo. So see you in the next one.